Welcome to Something Else Entirely, where we center the weird so we may grow stronger in spirit.
So I was getting ready for bed and I felt some fear around posting this tomorrow. And I thought, well, if I really know the truth that my soul is untouchable, then what am I afraid of? Where's this fear coming from? And the fear comes from the fact that I didn't always know that. And when I didn't know that, there were times in my life that I'm sure my words or actions hurt people. And so I want to say I'm sorry. And I hope that what I offer here can serve as an example that people really can change. And that our fundamental beliefs can change. There. I feel better now. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, everybody. I'm going to be really honest here. I am tired of editing. It's a lot of work. And as far as I can tell, there's only like 15 people still listening to this. So I'm going to just get on here and do whatever I feel like, which today I want to tell a story. So I was out with a good friend of mine, a scientist, and I was telling him about my direct experience of non-local consciousness. So the fact that I have accurately been shown that I have, that's not really right. It's hard to describe these things. It has become available to me, information across time and space that there's no way I could have known. There's no way I could have known. And yet the accurate information is there. And so to me, this direct experience shows consciousness exists across time and space, because how am I accessing this information? I'll tell you one. So the one I told him was I asked to be shown, I get into these deep meditative states, and then I asked to be shown information about a friend of mine. And I have not talked to this friend in months, weeks at least, I think months. And I asked to be shown information about him, and I was shown him sitting on his back patio, laughing and smiling and talking and eating popcorn. And I was also shown him going up and down the stairs in this way where I could tell he was annoyed. And so I then sent a voice memo to this friend with this information. It turns out he was the previous day, in fact, out on his back patio eating popcorn and going up and down the stairs of his house annoyed because the printer was downstairs and his office is upstairs, and he had to go back and forth and back and forth. And so, like, how could I get that information? So I'm out with my friend. I'm telling him this story, and he's looking at me like I'm nuts. And so I say to him, well, I've known you for years. We've been friends for years. Do you think I'm lying to you? And he said, it's not that you're lying. It's just that what you're saying is impossible. But it's happening, right? I am totally sober when these experiences are happening. It's real. And so I said to him, well, what would it take then for you to believe me? And he said, I would need to see it with my own eyes. And so I'm going to begin in August hosting Soul School office hours. So I hope you guys will join me for that, where I will help provide information about my own practices and the possibilities, and also the science supporting the fact that consciousness exists outside the body. And I'll maybe tell one more story here, which is that I went sorry, whew, I went and I popped up in this field. And so to be clear, when I'm doing this, I'm not dreaming, I'm awake. I'm just laying in my bed in a deep meditative state where you sort of put your body into a state of sleep paralysis, but your mind is still awake. And so I appeared in this beautiful field, and it seemed like a wheat field, sort of. And I was alone there, but it was so beautiful and I could feel so much love. And I asked, is there anyone here who can see me? And then my grandfather appeared. And I was telling the story to a colleague who thank God I have colleagues I can trust, but I was telling this story to a colleague I could trust, and he started to cry because he could feel the truth of what I am saying. So I saw my grandfather and he said, "Oh, Anna, hello." And he was so happy to see me, and he looked young and healthy and robust. And at first I didn't believe it was him. And I want to be clear, like, I was very young when he passed away, and I don't remember anything about his life. I remember that I believed all of my grandparents came from huge families. In my childhood memory, all of my grandparents came from families of 11 or 12 siblings or whatever. And so I thought people aren't going to believe me. And so I told him, tell me something so that when I get back, I can know it's really you. And he said, well, I have 2 brothers and 1 sister. They're all here. Would you like to meet them? And so he took me over to this picnic table. And while we were walking over to the picnic table, I said, are you sure you only had 2 brothers and 1 sister? Because I think I remember you having a bigger family. And he laughed at me. And so I got over to the picnic table, and everyone was like joyfully eating fruit and picnic, having this beautiful picnic. And a few more things transpired that I'm not really ready to share, but when I came back, I called my mother and I said, Mom, did Grandpa have 2 brothers and 1 sister? And she said, yes. And I just burst into tears because I know my truth. I did not have any knowledge of that information. I was a little kid when he passed. I never knew anything about his siblings. I never met his siblings. So whatever's happening is real. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people who can't believe me, and I wouldn't believe me either. Honestly, until a couple months ago, I would have been a cynic. And so I understand there are going to be people who are going to say that. And I'm not even angry because I get it. I understand why y'all feel that way, because I would have too. But now it's happening for me. And I'll spare you all the details, but these couple stories I'm telling here are not the only pieces of accurate, non-local information that has been shown to me. And it kind of blows my mind, honestly. I was talking to my dad about it, and thank God my parents believe me. Bless them. I'm so fortunate to have kind and loving parents who believe me. And I was telling my dad about it, and he asked me what I thought was a really good question. And not in a judgmental way, just really truly, he said, well, Annie, what is useful about this for society? And to me, what is useful about this for society is just start watching videos of people who've had near-death experiences, right? Where their soul goes outside their body. There are hundreds, thousands of these cases documented. I watched a lot of them, and these people can accurately report like what was happening in the operating room, who was there, while they have no brain activity, their heart is completely, they are medically dead. And yet they come back with this information and this understanding that on the other side is only unconditional love and acceptance. And I know through these practices, we don't have to die to see the other side. And when you see that, it changes you as a person. And so what this does for society is it helps us remember the truth of who we really are. And it makes all these little trivial things that we get upset about or our fear of other people's judgments, it doesn't matter. Once you see, seeing is believing. And once you see these things for yourself, it changes you. And you remember that love is what we really are. And so I want to help people come to see with their own eyes, not through me, not as like I'm some guru who you'll come to and I will give you wisdom and I hold the wisdom. No, honestly, we don't need to worship someone outside of ourselves. We can learn to see these things for ourselves. And when we do, seeing is believing, and that remembering, it changes people. And so I can no longer remain silent. And you can see this across all the other scientists who've had these experiences. Go watch interviews with Federico Fagin, who invented the microprocessor. And his experience of cosmic consciousness and love was very similar to my first one. And once people see this, they just start talking. You can't help it. Because once you know this and you feel how it changes you, you can't help but want to tell everyone else. I know the truth of what I saw and what I continue to see. And all I want to do now is help other people see that and believe you are more than your physical body. And your consciousness exists without your body. And I was telling my mom about it in the way that, I've watched probably, I don't know, an embarrassing amount of people's recounts of near-death experiences. And the way I describe it is sort of like if you had never seen a dog, but you're listening to all these stories of people saying their account of a dog. And all dogs are kind of different, right? They have different sizes and shapes, and their hair is different, and the colors, everything about them, each dog is unique. And if you yourself have never seen a dog, but at this point you've listened to hundreds or thousands of people describing as best they can what a dog is like, even though you yourself have never seen a dog, eventually, when you listen to enough accounts, you start to think, I maybe kind of understand what a dog is like. But even better than that is to see a dog for yourself, to see the other side for yourself. And there's a lot of really good science to support the validity of this. So there are scientists in Virginia studying this. Like I said, Federico Fagin, other folks studying consciousness, Donald Hoffman, and they have subtle differences in kind of their theories. And I personally believe that it'll always remain a mystery, or our direct experience of it is real. So when you have these direct experiences of the truth that consciousness is non-local, that it is somehow something, a larger consciousness system that we can connect to and access information from, we can have direct experiences of that. And those are more convincing than any theory or book could ever be. And I hope that some people will show up for Soul School office hours. And it's not that I have the direct path or the only path, but there are certain practices in a certain sequence that I followed that led to this. And I believe everyone has a different access point. So my access point is through emotions. And so when I ask to visit specific friends or to see specific things, I ask for, can you show me the emotionally important information about this person? And that for me is what provides the most clarity. But I have other friends who are experiencing this through more of sensations in their body or through more visual experiences. And so it seems to me that there are many different access points or ways of noetically knowing, gnosis meaning the knowing that we just know. And I guess I'm just rambling at this point, but it feels pretty good. So I'm going to keep going for a little bit more. Uh, Another reason I think this is important is that we're in the age of AI. We're well into it at this point, and there are many things that the machines will be able to do as good as we could do, maybe better. In many cases, better. Let's be real. And so I believe that this is the next wave of human evolution. There are so many people who already are having this experience of consciousness as foundational, of being able to access information across space and time. If this is true, which I know it is, this has huge consequences for the way we show up in the world. If we understand consciousness is foundational, if we look at the Global Consciousness Project and how when all human beings have their emotions focused on a specific thing, that changes random number generators, changes things we can measure. And I know some people are going to come back and fight about the way they ran the statistics or whatever. And to me, that doesn't matter anymore because I have seen it for myself. And I want to help other people see it for themselves. Because when you remember the truth of your soul, you become so authentically powerful. There's no system that can control you. There's no judgment from another person that is going to harm. Your soul is untouchable. I don't know what else to say. Please join me in Soul School office hours. They're going to start, they'll be Wednesday evenings in August, beginning August 27th. I'll post about them on all my social media channels. Please join me there. May we grow stronger in spirit. All of us together. Come on, humanity. Let's go. All right. I love you guys. Welcome to the outro. Okay, so I do have some emotions around releasing this episode and this new format. And trusted friend and colleague of mine reached out this weekend. It was so supportive and helpful. And I wanted to share as the outro some of the questions he asked me. I believe they're useful, and he holds a lot of wisdom. And so he asked me why I feel the need to validate the information I'm receiving in these altered states of consciousness. And I want to be clear here when I say altered states of consciousness, I am completely sober, just in a state of deep meditation where my body is asleep, but my mind is awake. And so he asked me, why do I feel the need to validate it? And why do I want to share it? And so I'm going to start with the validation question. And around that one, I think there's many reasons, but one is I was raised for all of my formative years in the world of materialism and scientism. And so my own mind is being blown right now. As this is happening, I myself cannot believe what I myself am experiencing. And it's not so easy to just wake up and say, there, I've cured myself of my scientism and materialism, and now I believe. So for me, there is something in the validation of the truthfulness of the information I'm receiving that is helpful for my own process of belief. The other reason it feels good to me to validate these experiences is, to be honest, I don't get the right or like correct or true information every time. And so I am attempting to discern, and people who have theories of consciousness sort of speak a lot about how your own subconscious also surrounds you. So when you're attempting to become a clear radio, if we think about our brain as a filter or a radio, right? As we're attempting to tune to a specific channel, there's a lot of frequency and noise in between there. And so also when I fact check myself, it helps me learn when I am clearly tuning to that channel and when my own subconscious is in the way. And through these tests, I am cultivating discernment around that. And I believe as more and more people this happens, having people who've created media artifacts describing their own journey and saying, here were things that were helpful for me in discerning that. So for example, I can now, it's very difficult to describe in words, but I can now sort of distinguish my own subconscious trying to hop in and fill in the blanks from clear information. And so it also just feels good to cultivate that discernment. And as more and more scientists come to understand consciousness as foundational, I believe there will be a need for support for us as people. And I know I'm reaching out to teachers and getting support myself. And so that's part of the reason it feels good to validate and also just to mostly just to make myself believe it, honestly, is the truest answer. Because I can't believe it myself. I am growing to learn to believe it. And I've also received information in those states of deep meditation. I have received information that feels important and almost too good to be true about love and acceptance and purpose and meaning. And so there's part of me that's still skeptical and thinks, no, that can't be, because I've been trained for so long. It's meaningless. There's nothing. And so part of the desire to validate also comes from wanting to believe and being able to test that this information is true. And I'm growing to believe that it is. And the other part about sharing is I care about humans. I think anybody who's met me knows I love people. I love them. I'm a social person. My natural disposition is extroverted and sharing. And so it feels natural to me to want to share this information. And I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything or make people believe different things than they do. There's no sense in that. But I guess it just feels good to share it. And I was speaking to a teacher of mine, and she was talking about starling birds and the way they all come into formation. It's called murmuration, if you've ever seen this, and they just all as a big group. And as I begin to tune to these new ways of understanding, the sharing feels like part of that, even if it's just for my 10 people who are listening, that somehow the expression of it is part of coming into alignment with that collective energy that flows and can restore wholeness and cooperation instead of competition, and that can be part of that somehow. And so I'm not here to try to prove anything to anyone or convince anyone of anything. I just share because it feels good to share it. And those who have ears to hear, let them hear. And if you don't like it, just turn it off. You don't have to listen to this. Yeah. And so there will be more science coming. But in the end, as I come to understand consciousness as foundational, it really has taught me that our emotions and the transmission of those emotional states, I hope it may be of benefit. That we return to a remembering of who we really are. That we're not here to be judgmental. We're not here to be competitive. We're not here to fight with one another. Here to help each other learn and grow. And that's it. And so if this can help, then that's good. And it's that simple. The transmission of love and joy and the liberation of all beings. So, from my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in to something else entirely.